our next conversation. Amid rising economic hardship, the scarcity of the naira appears to be compounding the situation for Nigerians. It has been reported that getting cash in Kaduna, Kano and Katsina States has become extremely difficult. As such, residents have called for urgent action by concerned authorities, especially as Christmas and end-of-the-year festivities approach. Worried by this issue of scarcity of the naira, Vice President Kashim Shettima has urged deposit money banks to tackle the issue of exploitation of Nigerians by point-of-sale operators, POS, who are charging arbitrarily for cash. The Vice President noted that the unwholesome practices by some POS agents are impeding availability of cash. Now you see those three states, Kaduna, Katsina, Kano, hard hits by this naira scarcity. But what is responsible for this? Why those three states?
No, it's not just those three states. Even Lagos is affected.
Even Lagos?
Yes, but the reporter sampled 3 states. So if somebody chooses to look at the Southwest today, okay, the headline will reflect more the states that investigated. Okay. So they are not going to extend it beyond those states. So that's what is. It's not as if it's only those states that are suffering. Okay. It is a national thing. For the vice president to have come out to complain that, look, Nigerians are not happy that POS operators are fleecing them. In some cases, these POS operators have even doubled their service charge. And you can't blame them. People go to the banks, they tell them, no, you can't take beyond 20K across the counter. What banks, and probably the CBN do not realize, as much as that the CBN is trying to tighten its hold on cash circulation. Yeah. The more people go to banks and they come back empty-handed, because there are banks in the north, based on that report, where people went to selling Zaria and they were told, no, we don't have cash. The more people go to banks and they can't access their money, the greater their lack of confidence in the system. We want financial inclusion. We want people to make use of the banks. A good number of our people still don't use the banks. A good number of our communities still don't have banks. You go to the north, you can travel more than 120 kilometers without seeing a bank. And you'll be running through communities. Look, go to Zamfara, for example. There are just a few local governments where you can see banks. And the local government where you can see banks, I doubt if there are even more than 5 or 6. I doubt. I do not have the record. But in those days when we were discussing Mefele's naira repainting, we mentioned where those banks were. And you could see that there were very few places where people could even go to exchange their notes for new ones. So Zamfara is one example of a state where there are very few local governments that have banks. So, and now in those few banks, people have cash, you can access, or you are told you can't take more than 20,000. Do you think that person will be confident again to take money there? Increasingly, Nigerians are refusing to take their monies to the banks. Increasingly, filling stations, all these people who live for the day, who earn their daily income, who earn income on a daily basis, they are not taking money to the banks anymore. They go straight to POS operators, deposit their cash in exchange for commission. So the POS pays commission to the ordinary Nigerian who has brought cash to him. He then levies Nigerians who want cash and have gone to him. So this is what is happening. They are trading in our currency. It's an unprecedented situation that we find ourselves. Growing up in this country, I never knew that a day could come when people will be buying naira.
Is this not against the CBN Act of,
Those the CBN permitted point of sale
operators,
because they have penetration that the banks don't have.
Yeah.
Look at my state, for example.
Okay.
Apart from Kaba, that is in open land,
Okay.
Yoruba speaking part of Kogi. Apart from Kaba and maybe one or two other communities, they don't have banks. Banks have been overrun by armed robbers. They went to Isonlu, slaughtered about 9 policemen in one day, and then raided the banks, took money away. Some of the banks have shut down because of that. You go to even Osun, many of the even semi-urban communities don't have banks because those communities with little presence of security operatives get attacked by bank robbers and they easily escape. So many communities don't have banks. Now you want to build a house in the village.
Okay.
How do you access cash? You can't move all the money that you want to use to build your house in the village. You can't move it in your car trunk and say you are going. No, you have to use the POS operators resident in that community.
Okay.
So, and then farmers in the rural areas, they also need cash from time to time. These POS operators fill the void that have been created by banks. In the days of Ibua, Afribank, all of them, we had banks in rural areas.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But that's not the case anymore. A lot of them have wound up. So POS operators now serve as inverted banks, if I can use that word, because sometimes I don't even know which one to use. They now serve as inverted banks for the ordinary Nigerian. So you cannot say that we don't need them. In fact, if we scrap them, there will be greater problems. It will bring real problems because people have become used to them. But we must regulate the activities. The other day when it appeared like Emefiele was going to crush them by his policy, we had to fight that policy. And in the end, that policy was reversed.
Yes.
And these guys continue to operate. Many people now, are giving up even paid employment to become
POS operators. Oh dear.
Somebody called me and said, please, if you can just loan me a little money, I want to be a POS operator. People who used to dig borehole.
Okay.
They've taken to POS business. Nigerians, it just takes 1 or 2 people to do something. Nigerians will just...
Yes.
You know,
exactly.
When pure water business came, the rate at which Nigerians got into it, and some were bringing all kinds of dirty water and selling to us. So this is the way we are. But we need to regulate their activities. Otherwise, it will become counterproductive.
Exactly. Nigerians will get exploited. We need to go on a quick break now. But when we return, Majid, there's a nexus. Is there a nexus between inflation and cash scarcity? We'll talk about that when we return. Don't go anywhere. Still, John. A nexus between this cash scarcity and inflation. Inflation right now is at, I think, 33.88%. Is this a deliberate, ploy by the CBN to bring down inflation?
No, I think inflation basically is driven by the cost of foodstuffs. It's a major determinant of the inflationary trend in Nigeria over the years. I mean, it has always been foodstuff. But then scarcity of cash, of course, it adds it's also a part of the inflationary trend, because normally if you go to your bank to collect 20,000 naira and you get that 20,000, imagine if you want to collect 100,000 through a POS machine, you end up paying almost about 2,000 extra. So that extra, in most cases, you build it into whatever cost of any business you're doing. So some have even argued that probably the banks have an alliance with some of these POS operators. I mean, they deliberately make cash scarce in the bank so that people will be forced to go to the POS operator, because I don't just get it. You go to the POS operator, if you tell them you need 1 million cash, they will give it to you. You go to a bank, you want your own money, you want 200,000, they will tell you you can't get more than 20,000. So it's something the CBN should look into. And I think that's why the Vice President raised a lot of concern. I mean, like they said, a lot of our rural communities still do cash transactions because some of them don't even have the network.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, they don't have the network to do mobile or online banking. So, and the kind of phones they carry cannot even do those stuff.
Exactly.
So basically, they still do cash. And then in the hinterlands, and when you go into the farms, I mean, you see that basically it's cash, especially when you go into banks. I mean into the farms.
Yes.
I want to purchase farm products. It's basically cash.
Exactly.
Although a lot more people now are getting used to electronic banking. Like the CBN wanted to increase inclusion. More people, they want more people into the banking,
in the banking
system to reduce the volume of cash out there to curtail inflation. But then it's turning the other way around.
It's turning the other way.
Because people still need their cash.
Exactly.
You see, there was a time an old woman said she would prefer you give her 10,000 naira cash than for you to transfer 50,000 naira to her.
Really?
Yes. Said she wants to hold her cash and see that this is cash. He said, because if you transfer this money, I don't know, it may disappear from his phone. The money I see in my phone is different from the money that I hold. So the money I hold in my hand is better. So we should increase the liquidity.
Exactly.
Especially people should be able to access their cash.
Exactly.
In as much as the CBN tries to increase the number of people who use mobile stuff, people should still also be able to, I mean,
have access to
that cash.
And unfortunately now, even the ATMs are hardly dispensing cash.
Exactly.
You go to the ATMs, ATM galleries, whether in the airports or other public places, they are not dispensing cash. And
where they dispense, you won't be able to collect more than 5,000 at once.
Anyway, but the concern raised by the Vice President, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think it's a valid one that banks, because he tried to get the banks and the CBN to do something about this problem, that the POS operators, rogue POS operators, shouldn't continue to exploit Nigerians. That's what he's saying, that there's a need to do something to address the dissatisfaction of Nigerians with the way POS operators are exploiting them. And he wants banks to also seamlessly make naira notes available to the public. So if people keep going to the banks, they can't access naira, they can't access their money. More and more people will go to the POS operators. That's that's Vice President Shettima's logic. And when they keep going to the POS operators will continue to take advantage of this Nigerian. So he wants both the CBN and the banks to play their role in ensuring that this exploitation of the ordinary Nigerians by POS operators is nipped in the bud. He said the CBN must ensure that POS charges are fair, transparent, and reasonable. So it's a very valid concern that the Vice President has raised, especially about excessive transaction fees by POS operators. And we too, we talked about this earlier, that where they used to take 4,000, for example, they've doubled it to 8,000. You can see that Nigerians are desperate. They are looking at what's happening in the banks. They know that people go to the banks. Sometimes they are turned back that there's no money.
Yes.
Or sometimes they are told, no, you can't go beyond this threshold. And they need money.
Exactly.
So if they can't get it on the banks, where then do they go? They are forced to go back to the POS operators, who now, seeing that people are desperate, seeing that more and more people are looking for cash would then increase their service charge. So,
but how can they be controlled to check that, okay, you must not go beyond these charges?
The CBN must find a way to regulate them.
Regulate.
Yes, and of course they have to be registered. Nobody should just simply get up and say, I want to be a POS operator, because there are some rogue agents among them. So in regulating them, you have to also give to them a set of rules that have to be met. I don't think we should simply leave this POS business open to all commerce. So there has to be a way in which they will be regulated. Otherwise, we'll get to a point when they will now begin to look like, rather than be a blessing, they will now look like a curse to all of us. Whereas they came to fill a gap in the banking
system.